Thanksgiving morning crept quietly into Marcus Reed's small kitchen, settling over the counters where groceries lay arranged like pieces of a long-awaited plan. Fresh rosemary, cranberries, sweet potatoes, and the expensive butter his late wife always swore by were spread out carefully, waiting for his hands. Marcus whispered her old recipe as he chopped herbs, trying to keep her alive through the dishes she once perfected. He had been cooking since the day before, preparing a feast he hoped would finally bring warmth back into his relationship with his daughter Aaliyah. Just as he wiped his hands on a towel, the front door clicked open. Aaliyah stepped inside in a stylish coat Marcus had helped her buy. "Dad, you're here," she said without even looking at him. "Good. I need something." Marcus moved toward her, arms slightly lifted for a hug, but she sidestepped him and walked into the kitchen. "I've been cooking since yesterday," Marcus said softly. "You and the kids are still coming on Thursday, right?" Aaliyah didn't respond. She set her purse on the counter and glanced at the food like it irritated her. "About that," she murmured. "We need to talk. But first, I need a favor." Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest. Tone. The same tone he had heard for 3 years. He took a slow breath. "What happened now?" he asked. "The car," she replied quickly. "Transmission. 800. Can you help?" His hand reached for his wallet before he even processed the request. He had been trained by repetition. "Of course," he whispered. "Family helps family." Aaliyah exhaled in relief while Marcus counted out $800. "Thanks, Dad. You're a lifesaver," she said, sliding the bills into her purse with a speed that cut him deeper than any insult. She didn't look at the food, didn't ask about him, didn't hug him. She simply left, leaving the smell of herbs and butter behind him like a reminder of how one-sided love could feel. That next evening, Marcus extended the dining table to fit 6 people. He set out the good silverware his wife used to polish every holiday. Her mother, who had insisted on helping, placed plates carefully on the table as if the simple act kept the family from falling apart. Marcus tried to find comfort in the clinking and organizing. When the phone rang, his heart lifted before he even checked the screen. "Yes, Aaliyah," he answered warmly. "What time should I expect you all?" But it wasn't his daughter. It was her husband, Derek. His voice was flat, almost bored. "Marcus, we're celebrating Thanksgiving at my parents' place," he said coldly. "Don't come. It'll be a small circle. Just close family." Marcus froze, fork in hand. He repeated the words quietly, tasting the sting. "Close family. I see." The call ended abruptly. The dining room, once alive with memories of past Thanksgivings, felt heavy. Marcus removed each plate one by one. Fork, knife, spoon, plate. The room grew quieter with every sound. He stood by the window, looking at his reflection in the dark glass. An aging man trying to smile but failing. Later, as he sat in his old recliner, the leather worn where his wife once rested her head, he opened his laptop. He scrolled through years of transfers, emergencies, repairs. 3 years. $47,000. Every time his daughter reached out, it had been for money. "Close family," he whispered, bitterness creeping into his voice. He leaned back, staring at the glowing numbers like proof of a truth he had refused to see. Every emergency she described matched perfectly with the deposits he sent, followed by silence. "She only calls when something breaks," he murmured. The photo wall across the room stared back at him. Aaliyah at graduation on her wedding day with her children, always smiling at moments funded by him. He felt the ache in his chest deepen. Marcus stood and walked to the hallway, examining the framed photos like evidence at an investigation. He picked up a picture of Aaliyah's birthday 3 years ago. She was glowing, joyful, standing in front of a new car. He had paid the down payment that week. Another picture showed her unwrapping gifts 2 Christmases back. The same week he had covered their mortgage when Derek's commission came late. Marcus lowered the frame, realizing her smiles had always followed his sacrifices. "Her happiness shouldn't depend on my bank transfers," he whispered. The house was silent except for the refrigerator humming in the background. The food he prepared earlier sat untouched in containers he knew he wouldn't open. Thanksgiving, a holiday meant for family, had become a mirror showing him everything he ignored for years. He sat back in his recliner and closed his laptop, feeling something shift inside him. Not anger, not sadness, something cold and steady. "I've been treated like a wallet," he whispered. "Not a father." Thanksgiving morning arrived gray and still. Marcus hadn't slept much. The house looked like it was waiting for a celebration that would never happen. His phone lay face down. He didn't want to see the empty screen. But at 9:47 it buzzed. He almost ignored it. Almost. Instinct, the kind that kept him alive through 30 years as a fire captain, made him answer. "Hello," he said quietly. A warm laugh filled the speaker. "Marcus Reed. Tell me you remember your old academy partner, Terrence Hall." Marcus sat upright, blinking. "Terrence. Terrence Hall," he repeated, trying to match the voice to memories of early mornings and firehouse jokes. "The one and only," Terrence chuckled. "Heard you might be alone today. That true?" Marcus hesitated. "Plans changed," he said softly. Terrence didn't miss the pain hidden in those two words. "Well, forget all that," Terrence said firmly. "Get dressed. I've got a house full of people in Lakewood, too much food, and a wife who insists we need good company. Come join us. Marcus, you saved my career back in the day. The least I can do is feed you." For the first time in days, Marcus felt something warm flicker inside him, an invitation without strings attached. "What time?" he asked. 2:00, Terrence replied. "I'll text the address." And Marcus, "It's good to hear your voice again." When the call ended, Marcus sat still, absorbing the unexpected kindness. Slowly, he stood and headed toward the bathroom. The shower felt symbolic, washing away a layer of heaviness he didn't realize he carried. He trimmed his beard, brushed his hair, and picked out a crisp navy shirt he hadn't worn in months. As he buttoned it, he caught his reflection in the mirror. "You still matter," he whispered. "Even if your own daughter forgot." Before leaving, Marcus stopped in the hallway where the photos hung. He picked up one more frame, the last family barbecue before his wife died. Aaliyah looked different then. Present, honest. He placed the frame back gently. Then he grabbed his keys and stepped outside, avoiding the kitchen where untouched dishes waited like ghosts of hope. "Not today," he murmured as he locked the door behind him. The drive to Lakewood took 30 minutes. Soft music filled the car as Marcus passed the exit to Aaliyah's neighborhood. He didn't look. Not once. Instead, he focused on each turn and the sense that he wasn't begging for a place at anyone's table. He remembered something Mike had told him years ago. Terrence owns 12 restaurants, worth millions now. Marcus shook his head. "And he still wants my company. Not my money." Lakewood felt like another world entirely. Tree-lined roads curved past manicured lawns and gated homes. Marcus followed the GPS until towering iron gates appeared before him. Camera blinked on. "Name?" a voice asked. But before Marcus could answer, Terrence's booming laugh came through the speaker. "Let him in. Marcus Reed gets royal treatment today." The gates slid open, revealing a stunning 3-story home with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley. Marcus parked between a Tesla and a black SUV, nerves fluttering in his stomach. Before he reached the steps, Terrence burst through the front door with open arms. "There he is," he shouted, pulling Marcus into a hug so strong it nearly lifted him off his feet. Marcus stiffened from surprise, then slowly relaxed into the genuine affection. "Look at you," Terrence said. "Still sharp as ever." Marcus chuckled. "You're lying," he said softly. "But I'll take it." Inside, warm light filled the house. Laughter echoed from the dining room where people chatted over wine. The smell of roasted turkey drifted through the air. Vanessa, Terrence's wife, approached with a gentle smile. "So you're the man who saved my husband's career," she said. Welcome, Marcus. We're glad you're here. Dinner was lively, full of stories and warmth. Marcus found himself seated between a real estate developer named Carlton and a tech consultant named Elise. They asked about his years in the fire department, his rescues, his toughest calls. Marcus answered honestly, surprised by how interested everyone seemed. At one point, Vanessa leaned in and said, "Terence always said you were the best partner he ever had." Terence raised his glass. "He taught me how not to quit." They laughed together, not at Marcus but with him, something he hadn't felt in years. After dinner, Terence led Marcus to the terrace. City lights twinkled in the valley below, glowing like scattered diamonds across the night. "Come on," Vanessa called from inside. "You two need a picture." Marcus chuckled. "I don't take good photos anymore." Terence waved a hand. "Nonsense. You look like a fire captain, tired but unbreakable." They stood side by side as Vanessa snapped several shots. "Perfect," she said. Terence placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Brother, thank you for coming. You saved my career, saved my future. You're always welcome here." For a moment Marcus couldn't speak. The warmth in Terence's voice reached a place inside him he thought had gone numb. Back home that night, Marcus sat again in his recliner. But the house didn't feel as hollow. Not tonight. He pulled out his phone and opened the best picture Vanessa had taken. Him and Terence smiling, city lights blazing behind them. Marcus uploaded it to Facebook with a simple caption. "Thanksgiving with old friends. Grateful for real family." He hesitated only a second before pressing post. Then he made tea and settled into the quiet. 20 minutes later, his phone lit up. Dozens of notifications. 17 missed calls. 12 texts. All from Aaliyah. Marcus opened them slowly. "Dad, where are you? Whose house is that? That place looks expensive. Who is Terence Hall? He owns restaurants. I looked him up. Dad, we need to talk. This changes things." Marcus stared at the final message and whispered, almost amused. "Changes things for who?" The phone rang again. "Leah." Marcus let it ring 4 times before answering. Finally, Aaliyah snapped. "Dad, why didn't you answer? Where were you today? That house. Who is Terence Hall? Why didn't you tell me you knew someone wealthy?" Marcus kept his tone calm. "You never asked about my friends, Aaliyah. You only ask about money." The silence on the other end stretched long. Derek's voice whispered faintly behind her. "Let me talk to him." Marcus exhaled. "I'm going to bed. We'll talk later." And he hung up. Marcus switched the phone off and slept better than he expected. When he turned it back on the next morning, a flood of notifications greeted him. 23 new messages and 7 missed calls, all from Aaliyah and Derek. He set the phone down, made coffee, toasted bread, and only then sat to read the messages. First they sounded worried. "Dad, are you okay? Please call me." By 2 a.m. the tone changed. "We need to discuss your new connections. This could help the whole family." The phone rang again. This time it was Derek. "Hey Marcus," he said casually. "We saw your post. That house looked impressive." Marcus stared out the window. "Terence worked hard for what he has." 12 restaurants, Derek repeated. "That's serious wealth. You too close." Marcus's voice cooled. "Why does that matter?" Derek laughed nervously. "Just saying, it's good to know your daughter's father has connections, opportunities." Marcus repeated slowly. "Significance? You mean money?" Derek shifted. "We should meet up, you know. Talk about the future. Coffee, maybe lunch." Marcus pictured the untouched Thanksgiving meal still sitting in containers. He felt a sharp clarity rising inside him. "I'll let you know," he said flatly. Before Derek could respond, Marcus ended the call. For the first time in a long time, he let the silence settle without guilt. He walked to his home office and pulled out a worn notebook where he'd tracked repairs, bills, reminders. He opened a blank page and wrote one word. Enough. Under it he listed his pension, savings, house value, insurance. The number surprised even him. He had more than he ever realized. "I spent my life planning for everyone else's safety," he murmured. "Maybe it's time I plan for mine." He opened his laptop and searched. Estate planning attorney Portland. A list of attorneys appeared, but one stood out. Attorney Brianna Carter, 15 years of experience, glowing reviews from older clients who praised her for being clear, protective, and ethical. Marcus clicked on her website and read every line carefully. She specialized in wills, trusts, and safeguarding assets from manipulation. His chest tightened. This is what I need, he thought. Not another argument. Not another holiday spent questioning his worth. Protection. He dialed the number. "Carter Law Office, good morning," a receptionist answered. "How can I help?" "I'd like to schedule a consultation," Marcus said. "I need to change my will and protect my estate." The receptionist's voice softened. "Of course. May I ask what prompted the change?" Marcus glanced toward the hallway photos. "I need to make sure what I've built goes where it's truly valued," he said quietly. "I understand. Ms. Carter can see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. Marcus exhaled. "That works. I'll bring my documents." When he hung up, his hands shook. Not from fear but from control. A kind he hadn't felt in years. Minutes later, a new text from Aaliyah appeared. "Dad, please. Can we talk? Really talk?" Marcus replied. "I have an appointment tomorrow. We'll talk after." Seconds later she responded, "Appointment for what? Are you sick?" Marcus didn't answer. Let her wonder, he thought. He spent the afternoon pulling out bank statements, insurance papers, property documents, arranging them neatly across the dining table like evidence being prepared for a courtroom. The next day, Marcus arrived at Attorney Carter's office 20 minutes early. The waiting room was calm, filled with soft jazz and sunlight. Through the window, he watched the river cut through the city, steady and sure, much like the resolve forming inside him. When Attorney Carter stepped out, she greeted Marcus with a warm smile and a firm handshake. "Mr. Reed, I'm Brianna. Please come in." Her office felt serious but welcoming. Certificates framed on the wall, family photos on her desk. "You mentioned wanting to protect your estate. Tell me what's been happening," she said gently. Marcus opened his manila folder and began. "I've given my daughter $47,000 in 3 years, he said. Every time it was an emergency. And every time she disappeared afterward." Brianna scanned the documents, the highlighted statements, printed messages, transaction timelines. "You've organized this carefully," she observed. "Old habit," Marcus replied. 30 years as a fire captain. You learn to recognize patterns." She pointed to one entry. "Roof repair. New TV and sound system," Marcus said flatly. "I drove by. Roof is fine." Brianna leaned back, studying him. "Mr. Reed, you are fully within your rights to decide where your money goes, during your life and after." She spoke clearly, without judgment. "We can create a new will and a living trust. Most of your estate can go to causes you care about. A portion can still go to your daughter, but controlled after your death, not before." Marcus listened, letting every word settle like bricks forming a wall he never knew he needed. "Can she fight it?" he asked quietly. "She can try," Brianna responded. "But with these records and your clear mental state, your wishes will stand." For the first time in years, Marcus felt the ground beneath him stabilize. He wasn't helpless. He wasn't trapped. He wasn't obligated to a daughter who only saw him as leverage. He left the office with a new kind of strength, the kind built on boundaries rather than hope. The next morning, Marcus chose to meet Aaliyah and Derek at a small downtown cafe, neutral territory. He arrived early, taking the corner booth that allowed him to see the door. The old instincts of choosing the strategic seat never left him. At 10:07, he watched their car pull in. Aaliyah checked her makeup in the mirror. Derek adjusted his collar like he was walking into a negotiation rather than a conversation with family. When they entered, Aaliyah forced a bright smile. "Dad, you look good. Are you eating enough?" Marcus nodded politely. "Let's sit." His voice held none of the desperation it once did. They ordered drinks, complicated ones with extra caramel, oat milk, and syrups, while Marcus kept his hands around his simple black coffee. Finally, Derek leaned forward. "Oh, Thanksgiving looked like you had quite the evening." Marcus stirred his coffee. He said nothing. Silence sometimes said more. Aaliyah tried next. "Dad, we would have invited you if things weren't so last minute. We just thought you might feel out of place." Marcus looked at her. "I didn't feel out of place," he said calmly. "I felt welcome." Aaliyah blinked quickly. "At a stranger's house. More welcome there than I've felt with you in a long time," Marcus replied quietly. Aaliyah swallowed. "Dad, come on. You know we care." Marcus met her eyes steadily. "Do you?" She hesitated. "You hadn't visited me in 4 months," he continued. "Until you saw that photo. Then suddenly you called 17 times. Derek cleared his throat, shifting tactics. "Well, Terrence seems successful. 12 restaurants, right?" "Yes," Marcus said evenly. "And that matters because—" Derek forced a laugh. "We're just saying it's good you have wealthy friends. You never mentioned that." "You never asked," Marcus replied. "You only ask when you need something." The tension at the table thickened. Aaliyah's fingers tightened around her cup. "Dad, we're trying to rebuild our relationship, but you need to communicate with us." Marcus leaned forward slightly. His voice was soft but unshakably firm. "Communicate. Aaliyah, I spent Thanksgiving alone because you decided I wasn't close family. And then, the moment you saw a wealthy friend in a photo, suddenly I mattered again." Her cheeks flushed. "Dad, it wasn't like that." Marcus shook his head gently. "It was exactly like that." Derek tried to interject, but Marcus raised a hand. "This isn't a debate." He stood, placing exact change for his coffee on the table. "I have an appointment tomorrow," he said. "Something important." Aaliyah frowned. "Appointment? For what?" "My personal affairs," Marcus answered. "Things I should have handled years ago." Derek stood quickly. "Marcus, wait. Don't leave like this." But Marcus was already walking toward the door. The cafe bell chimed softly as he stepped outside into the crisp morning air. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. A line had finally been drawn, not from anger but from self-respect. He walked slowly down the street, letting the cool breeze clear his thoughts. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of obligation lifting off his shoulders. He wasn't abandoning his daughter. He was protecting himself from emotional debt that had drained him for too long. As he crossed the parking lot, his phone buzzed again. He didn't even check the screen. He simply slipped the phone into his pocket and kept walking, the sound of traffic and morning chatter replacing years of silence and hurt. He had spent too long being the one everyone relied on. Now he was learning to rely on himself. The next day, Marcus returned to Attorney Carter's office. She reviewed every page of the drafted documents with him. His new will, the living trust, the asset protection clauses, the distribution plan. "You're certain about this?" she asked gently. Marcus nodded. "I want 70% to go to places that mattered in my life. The firefighter foundation, the shelter, the programs that actually help people. And the remaining 30%. For my daughter," Marcus said. "But in a controlled trust. After I'm gone. That way my love is clear. But so are my boundaries." Attorney Carter nodded approvingly. "This is a healthy decision, Mr. Reed." Marcus signed each page with steady hands. Not once did he hesitate. He wasn't acting out of spite but clarity. When the meeting ended, he walked out of the building feeling oddly lighter, like he had set down a burden he'd carried for decades. That evening, he made himself a simple dinner and sat by the window, watching the sun dip behind the rooftops. For the first time in years, he felt like his life belonged to him again. He didn't owe anyone explanations for his choices. He didn't owe unconditional rescue missions to people who only remembered his number when they were in trouble. Later, he sat at his desk and wrote a short letter, just a few sentences, to himself. Reminder. You are worthy of love that isn't paid for. He folded the note and placed it inside his wallet. A promise he intended to keep. The next morning, he woke up feeling rested, not heavy with dread. He brewed coffee, fed the neighborhood cat that always waited near his porch, and allowed himself a small smile. He had taken control of his future, and no one could take that away. 2 days later, Aaliyah showed up at Marcus's house unannounced, her 2 children racing toward him with bright excitement. Their small arms wrapped around his legs, and for a moment all his resolve softened. "Grandpa! Grandpa!" they squealed. He crouched down and held them tight. For 10 precious minutes, he forgot everything else. Every argument, every painful silence, every moment of being used. Then Aaliyah cleared her throat. "Dad, we found a house," she began. "In a great school district," Derek added as he walked in behind her. "We just need help with the down payment," Aaliyah said softly. 60,000. It would mean everything to the kids. Marcus felt something crack, not from their request, but from how predictable it was. He rose slowly. "No," he said gently. Aaliyah blinked. "Dad, what?" "Not this time," Marcus repeated. Her face tightened. "Dad, we're talking about your grandchildren's future." Marcus shook his head. "My grandchildren deserve love, not leverage." Derek stepped forward, voice turning sharp. "If you walk away from this, don't expect us to come back again. Don't expect the kids to grow up knowing you." Marcus looked at the children, innocent, confused. He crouched again, hugging them close. "I love you both," he whispered. "You can always come to me. Always." Then he stood and faced their parents. "But I won't be manipulated anymore." Aaliyah's voice trembled. "You're choosing strangers over your own family." "I'm choosing peace," Marcus replied softly. They left angry, slamming the car doors so hard the echo rang down the street. Marcus stood in the doorway until the SUV turned the corner. He closed the door quietly, the emptiness settling around him, not heavy but honest. On the floor lay the children's drawings, forgotten in the rush. He picked them up gently, smoothing the wrinkled edges. He wasn't angry. It was sad. The sadness wasn't the crippling kind he once felt. It was deeper, quieter, the kind that comes after accepting a truth too long avoided. Marcus set the drawings on the table and walked into the living room, where the evening sun stretched warm golden beams across the carpet. He sat down, feeling the weight of the day settle over him. His daughter's threat echoed in his mind, not because he believed she would keep the children away forever, but because she thought the threat would move him. Love shouldn't be a negotiation, he thought. And grandchildren shouldn't be used as bargaining chips. He closed his eyes and took a slow breath. When he opened them, he wasn't thinking about what he lost. He was thinking about what he gained. Clarity. Boundaries. He spent the next few hours cleaning the house, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to create calm in his environment. He dusted the picture frames, polished the table, straightened the books on the shelf. When he reached the hallway again, he paused by a photo of his wife holding Aaliyah as a baby. He touched the frame gently. "I did my best," he whispered. "I hope you'd be proud." He imagined her smile, the soft one she used to give when she wanted to reassure him. In that moment, Marcus felt something lift inside him. Soft release. Acceptance. Later that night, he made a cup of chamomile tea and sat outside on the porch. The neighborhood was quiet, a soft breeze rustling the leaves. For once, he felt no need to check his phone, no fear of missing a message, no anxiety about a looming request. He simply sat, listening to the world breathe around him. He wasn't alone. He was learning to be enough for himself. A week later, Marcus found himself sitting on a bench outside the local animal shelter. He'd come to donate supplies, something he had always meant to do but never found the time or emotional space for. Now with his life shifting, he had space. He held a warm cup of tea between his hands and watched volunteers play with dogs in the yard. Their laughter floated across the air, light and genuine. Beside him sat Janelle, a gentle volunteer he had grown close to over the past few weeks. She didn't want anything from him. She didn't hint at favors. She didn't circle conversations back to what he could provide. She simply enjoyed his company. "You're quiet today," Janelle said softly. Marcus smiled, a real unforced smile. "Just thinking," he replied. "How are you feeling?" she asked. Marcus looked at the dogs chasing each other across the grass. "Lighter," he said. "Like I finally remembered my worth." Janelle nodded. "Good. The right people stay because they care, Marcus. Not because they want something from you." He inhaled deeply, letting the cool air fill his lungs. "Then maybe," he said quietly, "I'm finally finding the right people." A golden retriever wandered up and placed its chin on Marcus's knee. He scratched behind its ears, feeling warmth bloom in his chest. No expectations. No hidden intentions. Just connection. "You know," Janelle said, "the shelter is looking for someone to help with the community outreach program. Someone calm. Reliable. People trust you, Marcus." He chuckled. "You really think so?" "I don't think," she said. "I know." Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate kind. The peaceful kind. The kind that grows slowly, quietly, and genuinely. And for the first time in a long time, Marcus was ready to move forward. Marcus joined the community outreach program the following week, meeting with families, seniors, and volunteers who came not for money but for support and companionship. Every face he met reminded him of the kind of relationships he had been missing, ones built on sincerity. Meanwhile, calls and messages from Aaliyah slowed. First daily, then weekly, then silence. Marcus didn't block her. He didn't resent her. But he no longer rushed for the phone, no longer felt anxious when her name appeared. The distance wasn't punishment. It was healing. One Saturday afternoon, Janelle invited him to join a small neighborhood cookout. He hesitated at first. Old habits whispered, "You're intruding." But Janelle simply smiled and said, "Marcus, you belong. Come." The cookout was lively. Kids running around, neighbors chatting, music playing softly from a speaker. Marcus found himself standing by the grill with two older men talking about football and old jobs. No one asked what he earned. No one hinted at what he could contribute financially. For the first time in years, he was valued for who he was. Later that evening, as he and Janelle walked back to their cars, she said, "You know, Marcus, you fit in here more than you realize." He looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. "Thank you," he said. Not just for the words, but for helping him step into a new life. A life where he wasn't needed only for his wallet. A life where he wasn't guilt, used, or shamed. A life where love wasn't conditional. That night, Marcus drove home with the windows down, allowing the warm air to brush against his face. For the first time in a long while, he felt young again. Hopeful, open-hearted, curious about what was next. Winter arrived softly, painting the city in pale gray skies and cold breezes. Marcus settled into a new routine, volunteering at the shelter, spending time with Janelle, attending community events, and rediscovering small joys he had forgotten. He learned to cook for himself again, not for a daughter who never arrived, but for his own comfort. He learned to sleep through the night without checking his phone for emergencies. One afternoon, a letter arrived from Attorney Carter. Inside were copies of his finalized estate documents. Marcus read through them with steady breath. His wishes were clear. His assets were protected. His legacy would go to people and causes that truly mattered. 2 weeks later, Aaliyah finally called. Marcus answered, not with dread but calm acceptance. "Dad," she said stiffly, We heard you finalized some documents. Are we still included? Yes, Marcus replied. In a controlled trust. Aaliyah went silent. Dad, we just want to be part of your life. Then show up, Marcus said gently. Not for money. For me. Aaliyah didn't respond right away. Her voice cracked. I don't know how to fix this. Marcus felt compassion rise. Start by being honest with yourself. And with me. After a long pause, Aaliyah whispered. Okay. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a promise. But it was honest. And Marcus accepted that. Progress, slow, fragile but real, had begun. When he hung up, he sat quietly, realizing something surprising. He had grown strong enough to forgive, but wise enough not to forget. The balance he never thought he could achieve. Janelle noticed the shift in Marcus. One evening as they shared warm cider on a park bench, she said, You seem more peaceful lately. Marcus nodded. I'm learning to let go of what hurts, without closing the door on what might heal. Janelle smiled softly. That's a hard balance. I'm figuring it out. They talked about everything and nothing. Childhood memories, music they loved, the pets they wished they had growing up. The conversation felt natural, unforced. When they finished their drinks, Janelle hesitated. Can I ask you something personal? Marcus nodded. Do you ever want more? He understood what she meant. A relationship. Companionship. A new chapter. Marcus looked up at the evening sky, the first stars appearing. Maybe, he said. For the first time in a long time, maybe. Janelle exhaled with relief. Me too. They didn't rush into anything. No declarations. No expectations. Just the slow, steady unfolding of something warm and genuine. When Marcus drove home, he found himself smiling. A small, quiet smile that came from a place of genuine hope. Inside his house, he turned on the lamp by the recliner and sat down with a soft sigh. The room felt different. Not empty. Not lonely. But open, ready for what came next. He picked up a book for the first time in months and read until his eyes grew heavy. And as he drifted into sleep, he realized something important. Healing doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in peaceful evenings and honest conversations, in the tenderness of someone who simply cares. Spring brought new color into Marcus's life. Trees around the neighborhood blossomed, birds returned, and the air carried the soft freshness of renewal. Marcus began walking every morning, waving at neighbors, stopping to pet dogs, enjoying a sense of belonging he had not felt in decades. At the shelter, he helped organize a fundraiser that brought in more donations than they expected. Janelle beamed with pride, squeezing his hand in gratitude. You're good at this, she said. People trust you. Marcus shrugged. I'm just showing up. That's more than most do, she replied. One afternoon, Aaliyah called again. This time her voice was softer. Dad, the kids miss you. I miss them too, Marcus replied. Can we come by this weekend? She asked. Marcus paused, not from doubt but from responsibility. Yes, he said finally. But Aaliyah, no discussions about money. No pressure. Just time together. I understand, she said quietly. And she meant it. When they visited, the kids ran around the yard while Aaliyah helped Marcus prepare lunch. It felt awkward at first. Not painful, just unfamiliar. Slowly, small conversations filled the silence. Aaliyah asked about the shelter, about Janelle, about the new cookout Marcus attended. Not once did she mention money. When they left, she hugged him gently, almost shyly. Dad, thank you, she whispered. Marcus smiled. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Later that night, Marcus sat on his porch with a cup of tea, thinking about how much had changed. Not quickly, not dramatically, but steadily, like the slow return of light after a long winter. He realized healing wasn't only happening within him. It was spreading through the people around him too. As months passed, Marcus's relationship with Aaliyah continued evolving. Not smooth, not perfect, but honest. She began visiting more often, sometimes with the kids, sometimes alone. They talked about memories, regrets, and boundaries. There were moments of tension. Old habits don't disappear overnight, but Marcus handled them with clarity, no longer afraid to speak up. "Dad," Aaliyah said during one visit, "I know I hurt you. I know I made you feel like a wallet. I'm sorry." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. She wasn't manipulating him. She wasn't bargaining. She meant it. "Thank you," he said softly. "That means a lot." They didn't hug right away. They just sat in silence, letting the moment breathe. Meanwhile, Marcus and Janelle grew closer. Not rushed, not intense. Just steady, like two people discovering comfort they thought was long gone. One evening, they cooked dinner together at Marcus's house. As they chopped vegetables and laughed over old stories, Marcus felt something unfamiliar. A sense of home that didn't come from obligation or blood, but from companionship. After dinner, they sat on the couch, talking about dreams they had let slip away over the years. "Do you ever think about traveling?" Janelle asked. "Sometimes," Marcus admitted. "Where would you go?" He thought for a moment. "Somewhere warm, peaceful, near the water." "Take me with you," she said with a soft smile. Marcus chuckled. "You sure about that?" "Positive." They sat quietly, the warmth between them growing. Marcus realized that life had given him a second chance. Not the one he expected, but the one he needed. Chance to love again. To live again. To belong again. And he wasn't letting it slip away. Summer arrived with long days and warm evenings. Marcus and Janelle began spending weekends exploring nearby towns, walking through markets, eating at small restaurants, and laughing over things that once would have rolled past him unnoticed. He found himself smiling more, listening more, living more. Meanwhile, Aaliyah's behavior continued to transform. Not perfectly, but noticeably. She started calling to check on him without asking for anything. She sent pictures of the kids during their school events. She invited him to birthdays and barbecues. She was learning how to love without expectations. One Saturday during a visit, Aaliyah sat beside Marcus on the porch. "Dad," she said, "I'm trying. I know it's late, but I'm trying." Marcus placed a gentle hand over hers. "That's all I ever wanted." Tears welled in her eyes. "I was wrong to treat you the way I did." Marcus squeezed her hand. "You're growing. That matters." As the sun dipped behind the trees, the kids joined them on the porch swing. Marcus wrapped an arm around them, feeling the warmth of their small bodies lean into him. Later that evening, after the family left, Janelle arrived carrying 2 milkshakes. "Thought you might want something sweet," she said. "Always," Marcus joked. They sat under the porch light sipping their drinks. Janelle leaned her head on his shoulder. "You're changing," she whispered. "You're softer. Happier." "I think," Marcus said slowly, "I'm learning how to live for myself. And love the people who truly care." Janelle intertwined her fingers with his. For the first time in a long time, Marcus felt something deep and certain. He was no longer surviving life. He was participating in it. As fall returned, Marcus felt the year come full circle. Thanksgiving approached again, but this time the quiet kitchen didn't feel heavy. Felt peaceful. He prepared only a few dishes. Nothing extravagant. Just enough for himself and whoever chose to show up. He wasn't waiting anxiously for a call, a visit, or approval. He was simply living. The morning of Thanksgiving, Janelle joined him early. "Mind if I help?" she asked. "Only if you promise not to burn the rolls," Marcus teased. She laughed, swatting his arm. As they cooked together, the kitchen filled with warmth, both from the oven and from the gentle comfort they had built together. Around noon, Aaliyah texted, "Dad, can we stop by later? The kids want to see you." Marcus replied, "Of course." No expectations. No pressure. When Aaliyah arrived with the children, she hugged Marcus first. Not forced. Not calculating. Genuine. "Dad," she said softly, "thank you for giving me another chance." Marcus felt a familiar ache, but it was no longer painful. "We're both learning," he said. They shared dinner, a simple, heartfelt meal filled with laughter from the kids and light conversation. No tension. No manipulation. After the meal, Aaliyah helped clean the dishes while the children played outside. "I'm proud of you," Marcus said quietly. Aaliyah looked up, eyes glistening. "I'm proud of you too, Dad." Janelle joined them later, bringing pumpkin pie. The kids adored her, pulling her into games and stories. As the evening settled in, Marcus stood on the porch watching the people he cared about. His daughter, his grandchildren, and the woman who helped him rebuild his peace. He felt gratitude not for perfection but for progress. That evening, after everyone left, Marcus and Janelle sat together on the porch. The breeze was cool, the sky painted with deep blues and flickers of stars. "You know," Janelle said softly, "a year ago you were so closed off. Now look at you." Marcus chuckled. "Guess I had a few walls to break down." "We all do," she replied gently. "The important part is you didn't let the hurt harden you." Marcus considered her words. "I had help." Janelle smiled. "We helped each other." She leaned against him, and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. For the first time since his wife passed, Marcus didn't feel guilty for caring about someone new. He felt ready. "Janelle," he said quietly. "Yes. Would you like to go away for a weekend? Somewhere peaceful by the water?" Her smile widened. "I'd love that." They fell into a comfortable silence, watching fireflies blink across the yard. Inside the house sat the remnants of the day. Dishes drying, children's laughter lingering in the air, quiet warmth humming through each room. Marcus felt proud, not of what he had given away in money, but of what he had finally kept for himself. Dignity, boundaries, peace, and the capacity to love again. When he closed his eyes, he didn't see regret. He saw possibility. A future no longer shaped by guilt or obligation, but by choice. His choice. The following month, Marcus and Janelle traveled to a quiet lakeside town. The water shimmered under the morning sun, and the crisp air carried the scent of pine trees and fresh earth. They rented a small cabin with a porch overlooking the lake, a peaceful retreat far from the noise of responsibility. Each morning they drank coffee together as ducks glided across the water. They talked about dreams, fears, and small joys. Marcus realized how refreshing it was to be with someone who didn't expect him to fix everything. Someone who met him halfway. One afternoon, as they walked along the lake, Janelle slipped her hand into his. "Marcus," she said softly, "you deserve this. All of it." He squeezed her hand gently. "For the first time," he said, "I believe that." They spent the evening cooking dinner together, laughing as they fumbled with ingredients and spices. Later they sat by the fireplace, wrapped in blankets, listening to the crackle of burning wood. "Do you think your daughter will understand?" Janelle asked gently. Marcus nodded slowly. "I think she's trying. And I'm willing to try with her." Janelle smiled. "Then you're already healing." The trip felt like a turning point, a soft reminder that life didn't end at loss or betrayal. It restarted in unexpected ways, with unexpected people. When they returned home, Marcus felt renewed, calmer, brighter, and more grounded. Even Aaliyah noticed. "Dad, you seem happier," she said during their next visit. Marcus smiled. "I am." And he meant it. As the year came to a close, Marcus stood once more in his kitchen, not burdened but content. He chopped vegetables for a simple dinner, humming to himself. The house no longer felt hollow. It felt lived in, warmed by new memories and healthier connections. Aaliyah called regularly now, sometimes just to talk. She never mentioned money again. The kids visited often, filling Marcus's home with laughter. And Janelle became a steady presence in his life, gentle, supportive, and genuine. One evening, as they sat on the porch in the soft glow of sunset, Janelle took his hand. "Marcus," she whispered, "I'm proud of you." He looked out at the yard, the trees, the porch swing, the quiet peace settling over everything. "For what?" he asked. "For choosing yourself," she replied. "For choosing peace. For choosing people who love you for you." Marcus exhaled, feeling a deep calm bloom in his chest. "I spent years trying to be everything for everyone," he said. "I didn't know I could choose something different." "Now you do," Janelle said softly. He turned toward her, brushing a thumb across her hand. "Thank you," he whispered, "for helping me remember who I am." She smiled. "You did the work. I just stood beside you." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Marcus realized something profound. This wasn't a second chance. This was the life he was always meant to have. A life built on respect, honesty, love, and boundaries. A life where he wasn't drained, but nurtured. A life where he finally understood the truth he had forgotten for years. He was enough. And with that truth settled firmly in his heart, Marcus stepped confidently into a future shaped not by what he gave away, but by what he chose to keep. His dignity, his peace, and his capacity to love again.